I personally like a woman with style. Style is how a person puts themselves together. I'm most successful when I'm doing something classic, but with my own twist. I never want to be too far ahead of the curve, but ahead of the curve. I don't think about the woman, is she pretty, is she tiny, is she big? I think about her lifestyle because the clothes have to connect to the lifestyle of the person wearing them. I grew up in Massachusetts, but I ended up going to RISD, and that was the beginning for me. I graduated in early June of 1960. I graduated at 1 o'clock, and I was living in New York at 5 o'clock in a fifth floor walk up on 14th Street. And I don't know why I rushed, because I didn't get my first job until October. And I was terribly naive. I was determined not to ask my parents for money. I ran an ad in Women's Wear Daily. I only got one response. Call me, Arnold Schoenfeld, Loom Togs. I called Donald Brooks, who was a well-known American designer at the time. I idolized his work. He said, Arnold Schoenfeld, Loom Tog, take it. I went for the interview. Arnold Schoenfeld hired me on the spot. Went home all excited, and I called my father. I said, Dad, I got a job. It was $75 a week. I was one of 3 young designers there, and then there was a head designer, and Mr. Schoenfeld. I loved it. I loved it. I would stay there until 8, 9 o'clock at night. Loom Togs ran a fabric that they called Tara Tweed, and they basically made golf shorts for women out of this tweedy basket weave kind of fabric. Arnold Schoenfeld, who owned the company, called us all to a meeting that was going to be to discuss the new weave for the following season. And they showed us what we call a blanket, which was just a series of the patterns, and it would have boxes that had the different weaves. And everybody's looking at it, and he's saying, well, any comments? And everybody's looking at each other. And all of a sudden he said, Narducci, what do you think? And I said, that one, and second best that one, and third best that one. And he looked at the salesman and he said, weave up 20 yards of each of those. It was interesting because within 6 months I was the head designer. I started getting a lot of publicity for the company and for myself. My name wasn't on the label, but Arnold Schoenfeld let me do pretty much what I wanted to do. And he knew that I didn't do anything outrageous. I did sensible clothes using the fabrics that they were used to using, but I did more modern, fashionable clothes. I remember after a couple of years, I started getting big job offers from his competitors. I was tortured. And so I got up my nerve and I said, Mr. Schoenfeld, and he said to me, well, I knew that was going to happen, Leo, but you're not ready to leave yet. He was a mentor to me like no other. I always say he taught me how to navigate the choppy waters of 7th Avenue, and he did. Saint Laurent was a very important, influential. Courrèges was very important, influential. Claire McCardle was very influential. Norman Norell was very influential. And of course, you follow those designers. I'm aware of trends, but I use my own instinct. You just sort of know, and it's hard to explain to people out of the business. And I feel that I've always had pretty good instincts. You're always a little bit ahead of the curve. Because I do classic clothing, it makes it a bit easier for me. I'll take a classic and just give it my own twist, whether it be in color, a pattern, a new sleeve, the length, the proportions. Everything comes almost automatically. I had a feeling for what women were looking for, youth, because I was young. I was part of that 1960s youth movement, and I think Me and other designers like me at the time, Stanley Herman, Diana Littell, a whole group of us. We all created kind of a revolution in the country for youth and for younger clothes. And of course, the daughters all wanted to wear our clothes. The young sophisticates all wanted to wear our clothes. And gradually their mothers wanted to wear our clothes. So it kind of, I guess you call that a trend, but I don't think of myself as a trendy designer. I think I'm a classic designer. I use fabrics that were familiar to people. They're part of our fiber, they're part of our lives. And I use cotton, I use wool. I like fabrics that draped and were feminine, soft on a woman. I like curves. I like things that move on a woman's body the way her body is. Woman power was just starting to really happen. And I've always worked well with women. All the important influences in my life, other than Mr. Schoenfeld, were women. And my father, he said to me on his dying bed, he says, I wouldn't have become anything if it wasn't for Mother. I'm always thinking about forwarding ahead. Now I mentor a lot, and I always advise these kids who want their own labels and I can't wait to get out of school. You got to work for someone first. You got to work at least 2 years somewhere to get your foot into the business and understand what you're doing, or you're just gonna lay an egg. If I give advice to any young person and I look at their work, I'll say, you have to edit. You have to take something off. Right now, I'm mentoring a kid who is 17 years old. I cannot express the joy that it gives me watching this kid grow. I'm changing his life. I'm preparing him for college. It makes me proud of not being a designer. It makes me proud of being a human being. My name is Narducci. I'm a designer who cares. What I really care about is the lifestyle of the people I design for.
Do